Okay. Uh, am I audible to all of you?
Yes, Bhaskar,
Yes.
please proceed.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back on the second day of International Management Conclave 2021, a platform to introduce the aspiring managers to the new normal in business and society at large. Now, I welcome our Vice Chancellor, Sir, Dr. Biswajoy Chatterjee, Sir. I request you to kindly enrich the event with your valuable words.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so as I said yesterday, I can see almost the presence of all possible countries in this management conclave. And I'm really delighted to understand that more than 500 people attended it. In fact, the whole video of yesterday's event is present in our YouTube channel. And I really did find that it has got a huge number of views. I'm delighted that the students are getting enough opportunities to interact with dignitaries from all across the world. And this is basically a networking platform, acting as a networking platform for the students. I'm sure that the students can later on refer to this discussion, refer to this talk, and interact with the resource persons, with these people, top people from all across the world, and that will help them in their career. I wholeheartedly welcome Mr. Ram Subramanyam from My Money Karma, Stanford University, USA. Thank you, sir, for being us over here. And I'm sure that all of us, all the students will enjoy your session thoroughly. I'm very eagerly waiting to hear from you. Thank you, Dr. Bhaskar, for giving me a chance to speak. You may kindly take over from here.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. So before beginning with the sessions, let me make you acquainted with the schedule for today. We will be having the first session with Dr. Ram Subramanyam on new learning models for new business models. The second session will be with Dr. Jerry Liftman on global IT trends. And the third session will be with Mr. George Theovelovich on blockchain technology. With this, I welcome our first speaker of the day, Dr. Ram Subramanyam. Dr. Subramanyam is PhD from Leicester University in UK. He has launched several ventures in his career. And currently his venture is helping Indian consumers with money management. He has delivered several lectures in IITs and IIMs. He's a renowned academician and avid researcher in the field of entrepreneurship. I welcome you, sir, and request you to kindly take over the session.
Thank you, Bhaskar, and thank you, Professor Chatterjee. I am delighted to be here. The fact that 500 young enthusiastic students and faculty are attending this is a big motivation for me. So with that introduction, let me straight plunge into my presentation. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so the conversation for today is about how new business models emerge and how our learning models need to change accordingly. So that's going to be the topic of our conversation today. And Mr. Bhaskar, if you are unable to hear me, please stop me so that we can fix the problem. And if you don't interrupt me, then I'm going to assume everything is working well and I will continue with the lecture.
Sure, sir.
Is that okay?
Sure, sir.
Okay, very good. Now, the business models are evolving and new business models are born every day is an understatement. The fact that change is happening everywhere is being spoken about. But what is not being spoken about is how fast the change itself is happening. Now, the rate at which the change is coming at us requires that we change the way we learn new things, because the traditional learning methods that are adopted may be suitable for the older business models, but the newer business models demand newer skills from the students. And to obtain newer skills, the students may have to adopt new learning models. Unfortunately, because of constraints such as legislative constraints imposed by governments, scarcity of resources, scarcity of qualified faculty members, scarcity of equipment, and the lack of so many things, the students today are not able to adapt to the new learning models. And this conversation is a set of recommendations I have for both the students and the faculty members, so that they will be able to fine tune a little bit of their learning techniques, so they can learn the new business models and be available for job opportunities that demand newer skills. So let me start with the first slide here. Are you in control or?
No, sir, you are having the full control, sir.
Because it says I am not in control.
Just a minute, sir. Okay. Dr. Ram?
Yes.
Emma. So kindly, sir, reshare the PPT so that if is there any problem, we can resolve it.
Okay. You want me to send the PPT to you?
No. Just you share it again, sir. Just stop sharing and then start sharing again.
Okay. Now, when I stop sharing, it seems to be working fine. Okay. Are you able to see it now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to start with a couple of stories. As I was mentioning to you, the new business models are nothing new. Everybody is aware of it. So much of it is already in the news every day, in business news, in generic news, and so on and so forth. Let me start with a couple of interesting pieces of data items. For instance, Tesla Motors, an EV manufacturer in 2020, made more money selling Bitcoins than it did making cars. Imagine this, an automobile company makes more profits in its investments in Bitcoin than in its sale of automobiles. And the second interesting item is Robinhood, online broker. The equivalent of that in India is Zerodha, which went public a week earlier. And in 1 week, its valuation doubled. And the third interesting and a peculiar item is the government of Singapore wanted to offer online-only banking licenses. And the e-banking license the Singapore government gave was not to a bank, but to a telephone company. The Singapore Telecom was given the online-only banking license, the first online-only banking license to a telecom company rather than to a bank. Now, the Singapore Telecom had to convince the other banks that there is nothing to be feared about. There is nothing to be worried about. There is no reason to fear about it. And that they are going to work with other banks in functioning efficiently as an online-only bank. And if you look at all these three situations, the underlying driving force is information technology. Now, I'm going to discuss a little bit more about information technology, but the point I'm arriving here is, if you consider Airbnb, for instance, it is by valuation larger than Hilton hotels, which have been in business for 100 years now. Now, Airbnb doesn't have any inventory. Airbnb is a software company. It is a platform. And if you look at it, the underlying technology or the underlying force behind Airbnb is also information technology. And of course, there are unintended consequences for Airbnb, because what it has done is it has socialized hotel stay around the world. In other words, there was excess inventory available and there was demand available. This platform just brought these two people together, which means someone who owns a house somewhere can compete with Hilton for business. So these are some of the unintended consequences of these new business models. But what is driving these business models? The driving force behind all these business models is data. Data nowadays is viewed similar to oil. It is now a new raw material. So much wealth is hidden in the data that algorithms can be used and applied to exploit that data. And the second reason for these business models evolving into successful models now is that the governments have become very flexible. The governments have understood the power of cloud computing, information technology, and so on. So what they are saying is, we are not going to be the governments of the past, and as new business models evolve, the legislations by the governments also evolve, and governments are becoming much more friendly to these business models. And one fundamental reason that all these business models succeed is information technology, and information technology is everywhere. And of course, for students in India, I don't have to tell you something that is so obvious to you. Information technology is everywhere in India. It seems to be the desire and the goal of all students in India, almost all students in India, to be involved with IT one way or the other. And so many of us are involved with IT one way or the other, knowingly or unknowingly. Every time we use a mobile phone, every time we use an app, we are involved with IT, either as a consumer, as a creator of IT. Another important aspect is the new business models have moved from automation to the automation of automation. What I mean by that is, especially in information technology, the software development has become so automated. Software development itself is the automation, but the software development process itself is so automated. It is the automation of automation. The consequence of that is rapid software development and rapid software deployment. And with what is known as the open source software, innovation comes from all over the world. And those of you in India might know there is this phrase in Rig Veda which says, Ano Badraha Kratovo Yantu Viswataha. What that means is new knowledge emanates from everywhere, and IT has enabled the rapid spread of new knowledge and the rapid application of new knowledge around the world. So that is the situation of the current business. Another important thing the current business has helped is it has helped newer businesses to offer high quality at low cost. In other words, a software that is developed in some corner of the world can be propagated immediately around the world. And the cost of distributing that software and the cost of cloud computing are so low that people are able to offer high quality products and services at low cost. For example, if you look at the point A here, it is high quality but high cost. But as the cost reduces, it becomes low cost and still high quality. So it now gives the option for people to be in point A, B, C, or D. So people may be able to optimize their low cost and high quality here or here. So if you look at this, it is almost the same cost structure. In the old model, the quality may be here, but in the newer model, for the same cost, businesses may be able to offer the quality at this level. So this kind of ability to offer high quality at lower costs has been enabled more by IT than by everything else. And the cost of cloud computing is rapidly depreciating day by day. In fact, the cost of Amazon Cloud in the last 4 years has fallen by 50%. In fact, more than 50%. In My Money Karma, our bills, even though our customer base is expanding, the cost per customer to host on the cloud, the cost of cloud computing to host a customer is 50% lower than what it was 4 years ago. So the cloud computing cost and the rapid depreciation of that cost is another motivating factor to offer low cost, high quality services. Now, given that these are the new business models, how do we prepare students and how do students prepare themselves for these new business models? The traditional learning models are not a solution anymore. Let me begin with the following recommendations for the new learning models. One, in the new learning model, information flow is not unidirectional. In the traditional model of learning, the information flow would be from the faculty member or from the professors to the students. Let me turn my video on. Okay. So in the case of the old traditional learning models, the professors come to the class and offer something to the students, and the students adopt and adapt to whatever the professor is doing. Whereas in the new learning model, students bring to class the information they acquire from all around, and they indulge the faculty in investigating the new business models or learning about the new business models. So here, in the new learning model, the responsibility of learning comes not only from the professors and the faculty, but also from the students. In other words, students request certain topics to be taught. Students um, uh, bring about case studies and newer business models to the classroom and ask the faculty to explain how this newer business models will be applicable to whatever they are learning in the classrooms. So the questions there would be, whatever being taught in the classrooms, how is that going to prepare me as a student to go work in a new business model operating organization? The second is, it is no more one student working by himself or herself. There needs to be a collaboration among students, because the technologies are evolving so rapidly. It is impossible for one student to learn all vertical technologies and become experts in it. So early group formation, early team formation among students in these new learning models become very crucial. The students may have to form teams, collaborate among themselves, and understand their individual talents and ask themselves who's going to learn what, so that each person in the team becomes strong or bring to the table some strong technologies so that they can produce some kind of an output as a team. So the ability of the students to deliver is going to be measured not based on an individual's ability, but based on how these collaborative teams of students are able to deliver a product or a service. So it is no more an individual effort, but it is team effort. And to deliver good team effort, the students have to seek good team members and collaborate with each other and then deliver products and services. The next thing is the business models, as I was telling you, change every day. So the students, rather than waiting for business models to evolve, may have to be proactive and ask themselves, the current business model that exists in the marketplace today, how would it change in the next 5 years, 10 years? Not only 5 years and 10 years, in the next 3 years. What kind of innovative skills are required, and what kind of innovations may happen in the business model, and how the business model would look like in the next 3 years. See, this is, rather than waiting for business models to evolve, people can ask themselves, how would this business model evolve? So they can simulate. Again, this is a simulation. The reality may be very different, but this gives students an opportunity to look at everything through an innovative mindset. For instance, if a student takes a look at how a bank functions today, the first question the student needs to ask is, how would this bank look like 2 years down the road, 5 years down the road, and 10 years down the road? Now, 10 years down the road is a big leap. It's impossible for almost anybody to understand how the business would look 10 years down the road, but they can always see introducing newer technologies and IT into the current existing business. How would that business or the bank that I was talking about would look like 2 years down the road? It's not only technology evolution, it is also the evolution in legislation, how the governments look at business, what kind of government policies could emerge in the future that would change the current business model. A few more businesses may be encouraged, some may be discouraged. So it's not just technology. One needs to consider the influence of external forces like the government, the availability of human resources. How is that going to change the business? So these are the things that the students may have to look at. They may have to simulate business models rather than waiting for businesses to evolve and come to them. They should proactively say, I am going to investigate how this business could change. The other thing is experiential. The one major drawback today in business schools around the world when it comes to learning models is the participation of experienced business leaders in the education system. The newer learning models will include an equal participation by industry experts in educating the next generation. And this kind of request or the demand may have to come from the students, who may have to look for either in the classrooms or after classrooms for lectures and training from those in the industry. The other important thing is students may have to ask themselves, do we just adopt everything that is given to us, or do we question everything that is given to us? Because whether we like it or not, the younger generation learns faster. The younger generations are more comfortable with the new e-tools. So it is easy for them to question everything. But unfortunately, sometimes they don't question anything because of the constraints imposed by the ecosystem, the traditions followed in the education, and also the customs that exist in a particular environment. In some environment, it may be viewed as a students questioning everything as uncooperative or unnecessary and so on. So this is something that requires help from both the faculty and the students, where the faculty have to encourage students to question everything, and the students must be bold enough to question everything. Because blindly adopting information or data given to them without applying logic or without performing any investigative techniques doesn't prepare one to face newer business models, because newer business models themselves evolve because the entrepreneurs, the managers, the owners of these businesses question everything, and that is how new business models evolve. So questioning everything is a training ground for preparing oneself for newer business models. Of course, recently, everything has become global, and the global workforce is being accessed by every company around the world. With that comes the responsibility of learning to manage global workforce. And what has happened is, because of the difference in cultures, because of the difference in working environment, geographical, political, cultural differences, global workforce management requires specific training. Now, there are two choices students have here. One, they can simply wait for these topics to evolve and be taught to them, or they can be proactive and then they can start learning it themselves. Like I said, the demand for faculty is humongous, and not every college, not every university is able to find qualified workforce or qualified professors and teachers, because there is a big demand. There are a lot of students demanding qualified teachers, and there is only a limited supply of qualified professors. So rather than waiting for the faculty to acquire these qualifications and teach them, today, the students may be able to learn global workforce management by themselves. And the one aspect, the negative aspect of the global workforce management compared to all the positive ones is, whatever happens in one part of the world affects or influences organizations and people in other parts of the world. For example, in our own company recently, because of the political turmoil in Minsk in Belarus, where we have a development center, we are impacted in India. Imagine this, something happening in Belarus politically impacts something or business-wise in Hyderabad. So that is the extent to which now, how do we manage ourselves in that situation? That is something, that kind of a training can be imparted mostly by the people who operate businesses or the practitioners. Remember, I was telling you about collaborative and experiential and multidisciplinary. Here comes the need to bring qualified, experienced practitioners to the classrooms where they can share their experiences. These experiences are so unique that only those who have gone through these experiences would be able to explain the mindset they had at that time when a situation arises, and what parameters they considered to make the decision, how expensive it was, and had they not acted timely, what kind of impact it could have had on the business. So learning to manage global workforce is not theoretical. There may be some theoretical aspects to it, but importantly, the practical aspects of how the global workforce is managed, how the problems are solved, how alternatives are found, and so on, has to come from those people who have really managed such situations. Another point here is not too many students, and even for that matter, faculty, focus on experimenting with learning. Of course, there is not a lot of time that students have or the faculty have to experiment whether learning model 1 versus learning model 2 versus learning model 3, which is better, which is not better, and so on and so forth. In other words, the faculty uses the term pedagogy. Now, here the constraints are imposed by sometimes the government, what should be taught and how it needs to be taught and so on, may be legislatively imposed by the governments, or because of the geographic location, universities may not have access to professors who are willing to experiment with it. And because of the economic situations, the students themselves may be more interested in learning those things that are required to acquire a job. So that could be a possible, those could be the reasons that could impede students and faculty experimenting with newer learning models. But whether they are experimenting or not, there is something that the students and faculty may have to do, which is they have to learn to learn. In other words, they may have to ask themselves, would an interdisciplinary and a multidisciplinary approach to learning is better? Would watching videos versus learning class, sitting in the class and learning, is that better? And the funny thing is, this is not universal. There is no one universal answer to this. Some students may prefer learning from videos. Some may prefer learning from books. Some may prefer sitting in the class and learning. The point here is the faculty and the universities may have to be flexible to let students choose the way they prefer to learn. For instance, if in the same class, a set of students prefer to watch videos and learn, another set of students would rather read books, another set of students would rather listen to the professor in the class, then they may have to figure out a way of bringing all these three groups together so that they can learn through whatever process they prefer. Now, I was talking about IT a few minutes back. Here is an example of how prevalent IT has become. For instance, At any given time, I don't want to read this slide, but I'll just give you, for example, in 1 minute, in Instagram, pretty close to 700,000 stories are shared. And in 1 minute, in LinkedIn, pretty close to 9,000 connections are made. In WhatsApp, 69 million messages are sent. These are the things that happen in 1 minute. What I'm trying to demonstrate here is, remember I was telling you that data is an raw material of sorts. Imagine the amount of data these are creating. 100, look at it, 197 million emails are sent every minute. So all this generates data. So this is just to give you an example that to operate in that environment, the learning models that were followed traditionally may not be sufficient. And students and faculty and universities may have to adapt to some of the new learning models that I have proposed. Okay, let me we know that globalization is happened. There is actually, because of nationalization, globalization, the degree of globalization is getting reduced, but that is understandable. But globalization is here to stay. So the students have to understand that they will be held to global standards. They are not going to be compared with whoever is in their environment, but whoever is available in the world for organizations to hire. Local organizations may not have much choices, but global conglomerates always compare a student from India to a student from the United States or from China or from elsewhere. So the students need to be aware in the new learning models that they cannot compare themselves just to local standards. They have to raise to the level of meeting global standards. What that means is, in terms of language abilities, in terms of managerial skills, in terms of technology talents, they are going to be compared to who else is available. A student in Australia is going to be compared with a student in India to see who is a better prospect for employment in an organization. Those were not the standards set, let's say, 30 years back, because everything was local. So today, the students have to ask themselves, yes, I am meeting the local standards, but globally, where do I stand? Am I able to compete with a student in the United States or in China or in Australia? It is not about just being cheaper in terms of resource cost compared to the countries around the world, but it is also about how productive and how talented individuals are. This so-called labor cost arbitration is not a selling point anymore. The fact that the students are open to accepting lower salaries compared to a student in the United States or in Australia is no more an attractive proposition for students. Talent-wise, standard-wise, they have to meet global requirements. And this is something that I just included, but not to insult anybody, but there are no excuses accepted anymore. The reason being, with the access and the penetration of internet and mobile internet, no one can claim that they have no opportunity to learn, that no one can claim that they have not had an opportunity to keep themselves up to date. So the students have to understand that rather than giving excuses, they must be forthcoming, they must be active in offering, in just not offering the services, but exceeding the expectations that companies have. And remember, this is not just for those seeking employment, those preferring to become entrepreneurs. Those people will also have to compete globally, because the same product or a service may be attempted or investigated by people around the world. It's not that one's idea is so unique, it cannot be replicated elsewhere. Because of the nature of the situation today, the same idea is being thought about and operationalized by so many people around the world. So these constraints or these challenges are not just for students who are seeking job opportunities, but also for those who want to become entrepreneurs. Similarly, these are also applicable to those who plan to become faculty members upon completing their education. In fact, for those who want to become faculty members, new learning models for these new business models are more important, because they are going to impart the knowledge of these new business models to the students in the future. Now, I hate to focus too much on IT, but I cannot escape reality. Reality is reality. I have to admit it. So some of these IT skills are no more optional. Especially the basic IT skills are mandatory now. I'm not talking about being able to use basic Microsoft Word, Excel, and so on and so forth, but a basic understanding of how programming works, a basic understanding of what cloud computing is, the complexities involved in cloud computing, how expensive cloud computing is, who are the cloud providers, and what is vendor dependency on the cloud computing, what are APIs. One doesn't have to know programming to understand these things, but these are basic terms that one have to understand, especially the business students who want to become managers later in life. A manager today needs to know enough programming to manage IT people. Now, somebody may be in marketing and they may not engage IT people, but even those people who are in marketing needs to know basic things about IT, so that when the IT department says that it would take 10 hours to get something accomplished on the cloud, they must be able to tell them, I don't think so, because my basic IT knowledge tells me this could be accomplished in 4 hours. Or the cost. My basic IT knowledge tells me that the cost is not this high, the cost has to be lower. So fundamental things about cloud computing, fundamental things about how long things would take, how much cost it would incur, and so on. Those kind of basic knowledge are required for everybody, even to those who's not in IT, but who's planning to become managers, who will manage large teams, who will manage large international teams. Because as I said earlier, you are not the future managers, whether they are in India or in the United States or wherever they are going to manage a team of global human resources. So these are basic skills. And unfortunately, even if these basic skills are not taught in business schools, it is the responsibility of the students to bring these skills to the classrooms and, in fact, indulge the faculty in understanding these basic skills. Now, here is where working together as teams really help, collaborating as teams really help business students. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to conclude with one short statement. It's nothing unusual about the business, new business evolution, because businesses have always been evolving. New businesses are born, the new businesses go out of business, but What is new is the product life cycles are getting shorter and shorter. Newer products are introduced more rapidly, and the newer products die more rapidly. So in that environment, the most important skill today for anybody who enters the workforce or anybody who becomes an entrepreneur or who enters the academia is the ability to learn things fast, the ability to look at what needs to be learned, how it needs to be learned. And more importantly, this is very important. We human beings don't have this skill, but we need to develop the ability to forget things. We don't have a delete button in our brain. The ability to forget old technologies and not be influenced by the impact of them and learn newer technologies is the most important skill. So that is why I chose this topic today, new learning methods for new learning models for new business models. And rather than waiting for business models to evolve, please, I request the students to simulate how the future would look like. I remember somebody said the best way to predict the future is to invent it. So I would say the best way to look at the future is to simulate it. Simulate how businesses would change 2 years down the road, 3 years, 5 years down the road. You can simulate how businesses would look like 10 years down the road, because it is a huge leap. So if you have questions, please feel free to contact me in the email that I've given. I'll always be very happy to answer your questions. Or you can go, I will have this, I'll have this PowerPoint presentation on ramsubra.com, so you can go download it. And any questions related to that, you can ask me.
So is it over?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know if you want to ask,
yes.
If you want to offer an opportunity to the students to ask questions, or.
Yes, sir. There are some queries coming. Sir, Mr. Mohit is asking, sir, can you suggest any platform, online platform from where I can learn big data analysis?
Oh, that's a very generic question. There are too many online platforms, but before somebody gets into big data analytics, they need to ask themselves, they need to be very clear as to where in the big data analysis they fit. Do they want to become big data software developers? Do they want to manage a group of people who do big data? Or do they want to establish an organization or an entrepreneurial venture that develops big data products and services? So depending on what their future direction is, they may have the level and the depth to which one may have to learn big data varies. And depending on that, the platform they choose will also vary. For example, see, I'm a pretty hands-on developer myself, and I am in my 50s and I still code because it helps me manage my people better. It gives me more confidence, and it helps me it makes me more productive.
Okay, I think you got the answer. And so the second question is coming from Miss Rima. She's asking that, don't you think that business organizations should train their employees about these new models and make them learn?
Interesting question. Let me answer that without offending the students. There are two groups of students that I have observed. One group of students who anticipate and learn themselves. And when they enter an organization, they are so well aware of the technologies they would be working. For them, such training and the expectation of such training is very redundant. There is another group of people who are organization dependent for learning. Now, to those students who are organizational dependent, I would like to tell them that the trajectory of your career may be impacted by the fact that you expect somebody else to train you. You have to understand, leaders never expect others to train them. They go train themselves, or they seek training and then take them. Waiting for somebody else to train, waiting for somebody else to shape our future may not be a good idea in the current environment. One may have to be really, really proactive and be driven if they want to go up in their career.
I think Rima has got the answer. So the third question, which is coming from Mr. Singh, he's asking that, sir, a lot of people have lost their job during COVID, especially in IT sector. What's your take in that?
Well, as somebody who constantly hires IT people, who's relentlessly looking for IT people, what I have observed is the demand for qualified, talented IT professionals continues to be more and more and more. So, for instance, this morning I read somewhere that all these outsourcing companies in India have gotten rid of pretty close to 10% of their workforce. Now that is pretty standard. Every time they go over hire, because they know there is this attrition rates are very high. Some individuals prefer to leave, some individuals who underperform. So if they hire 100,000 people, I'm sure they know very well in advance that they are going to eliminate 10, 15% of that population. Okay. Now, the core message today of my conversation here is that students have to relentlessly keep themselves up to date. Okay. It may sound cliche, but the reality is, as somebody who has to manage a group of developers, I have to, at my age, constantly learn newer technologies. Because when one of my employees come and tell me, Ram, would you like to develop this technology? Would you like to try this technology? I must be able to confidently analyze the positives and negatives of adopting that kind of a technology. So the learning never stops. The best way to defend oneself from ever getting fired is to constantly learn. And as I was telling you earlier, to simulate how the future would look like, how that business would look like a year or two down the road, and preparing themselves to meet those challenges.
Okay. I think I can mail the rest of the questions to you, sir, directly, and the participant can get the answers. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir, for the wonderful session. It was really, really great. Now I request our Vice Chancellor, sir, to present the certificate of appreciation to Dr. Ram Subramanyam.
So, Dr. Bhaskar, if you can kindly share the screen.
Yeah, sure, sir.
So, thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you for the knowledge that you shared with all. I could see many more questions in the YouTube. I don't think you have checked the questions from the YouTube live recording, but there are a few more questions over there. I would request Dr. Bhaskar to kindly mail those questions to Mr. Ram so that he can answer and you can give those questions back to the listeners. But in YouTube, I am not sure whether you know the mail IDs or not. You need to check those. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ram. Thank you for being a part over here. I'm thankful to you, and there's a small certificate of appreciation from our side to you for your wonderful lecture.
Thank you very much. And as somebody who has benefited from keeping myself up to date and tried different learning models myself, I would suggest that the students keep experimenting, and businesses are born out of new experiments, and new skills would also be born out of experiments. And when you experiment, my dear students, you will find the talents that have been hidden in you and you didn't know yourself. So I wish you all well.
Thank you, sir. Now I request our Dean, Dr. Anirudh Mukherjee, sir, to make us acquaint with the MOU signed with Global Institute for IT Management.
Can you kindly check once whether he is live or not? Can you?
Yes, sir is there. Good evening, sir. Just unmute yourself. Anirudh, sir, just. Good
Am
evening,
I audible now?
Yes, sir. Audible, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bhaskar. Actually, I would like to brief about the MOU between University of Engineering and Management, Jaipur, and Global Institute for IT Management, New York City. This MOU is based on academic research and collaboration. As you can understand, as I often say, collaboration is very important for us to move ahead. And the understandings are in this done in this fashion. This is GIIM, that is Global Institute of Information, Global Institute for IT Management. Thus, courses can be applied to UM's master's degree, and the breadth for GIIM's 35 IT management. There are around 35 IT management programs, over 150 courses, which should provide a significant expansion to UM's already successful master's degree program. In addition to expanding UM's master's degree courses, GIIM could offer any of these 35 different certification courses that UM believes would be valuable to its contents. So this is the brief about the MOU that has been signed, and I believe this would assist us and help us in expanding our global horizon. With respect, I would like to, I believe Dr. Jerry is here.
I am here.
Hello, how are you?
I am doing wonderful for a sunny Friday morning in New York City.
Oh, great. So I'm in India, Jaipur. It's raining outside, and we are having a weekend here. So I'd love to hear from you, Dr. Jerry.
That sounds good. Let me just share my screen, and we'll be ready to go.
Great.
Are you gonna let me share my screen?
Dr. Bhaskar, in
Sir,
the
let
meantime, you may
yes.
kindly introduce him.
Yes. Sir, let me just give me the opportunity to introduce you to our audience, sir. Dr. Jerry.
Sure. You can take an hour or two to introduce me.
Yes. That is also short to introduce you, sir, but thank you, sir. Dear participants, our second speaker of the day is Dr. Jerry Liftman. Dr. Liftman is a co-founder of Global Institute for IT Management. Dr. Liftman was former CIO in IBM. His experience combines the strength of practitioner, consultant, and academician. He has 18 books and several researches published which exemplify Dr. Liftman's expertise and leadership. I welcome you, sir, and request you to kindly take over the session.
Okay. Let's see. I think we're okay. You see everything okay? Can
Yes,
you
sir.
hear me okay?
Good to go. Yes, sir. Good to go.
Well, terrific. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. And we too are very excited about the collaboration with UEM and look forward to working with you to help you expand the programs that you're currently offering, your information systems, information technology, and computer science and management candidates to really understand how to leverage information technology in this digital age. It's a very exciting time to have a career in IT, as IT is basically having a significant impact on all aspects of every business across every industry around the globe. So as you heard, I'm a retired IBMer, where I was a CIO and basically owned lots of products and helped them start their management consulting group. And then I left IBM and joined Stevens Institute of Technology, where I was a dean and professor of information systems for also about 20 years. And then I left about 6 years ago to leverage my strong network of academics and practitioners around the globe to start the Global Institute for IT Management. So if you add up all of the years that I've been working with IBM and Stevens, now my own company, I'm about 125 years old, but I'm in very, very good shape. So besides changing my career and my job multiple times, we all know that the world is going through profound change. And I'm going to share with you 2 sets of research that I've been doing for lots of years that talk about the trends in information technology, as well as the important relationship that must exist between IT and business organizations to ensure everybody is successful, again, as they evolve into the digital age. So again, that's my career. But like I said, my career changed. The world is going through profound change. Everything changed but me. I am the same as I was in 1970 when I first joined IBM. I wish that were true, but don't laugh. You too will age as you continue on through your career. But obviously, everything is going through significant change. Well, let's take a look at what's going on in the world of Time magazine, a very famous, popular magazine around the globe. And we know that we continuously are going through changes in health, changes in outer space, religious concerns, problems we are having with Moscow, problems in the Middle East, problems with China, problems in business, deficit. But these covers are the covers of Time magazine from the 1970s. So as much as things are changing, will continue to change, some things really don't change much at all. Everybody talks about doing selfies. Well, selfies have been around since 1920, and don't laugh, that's well before my time also. We've had selfies, even people painting themselves. Then we take a look at a mother with their child in the 1990s trying to drag their kid in from playing, to the big difference today in trying to drag them outside to play. Everybody wants to stay indoors, forgetting the pandemic, but kids want to stay indoors and play with their toys online. The key is, as we take a look and consider the changes that we're confronted with and the trends that we're experiencing, you need to recognize them, anticipate them, and prepare for the future. Because again, it's all around us. And one of the good things about it is, it's going to happen, and you need to enjoy it. And candidly, one of the things that I appreciate and enjoy most about a career in information technology is the opportunity to really leverage those changes, and the changes, as you'll see shortly, that we're experiencing today, and the impact that IT is having, again, across every organization around the globe is so significant. There is no better time to have a career in information technologies. I heard when I first joined the call, some discussion about careers. Well, I know with the pandemic, lots of things are in flux, but I can assure you that around the globe, the career opportunities for information technology candidates who have the appropriate set of skills is dramatically increasing. And you'll see that in some of the research that I'll share with you shortly. So we take a look at Forbes magazine from November 2007, where they talked about Nokia. Can anybody catch the cell phone king? Well, right after that publication, we know what happened. The iPhone was introduced, and how many of you have a Nokia telephone? If we take a look at some of the largest companies in the United States over the more recent decades, and take a look at the names that you're very familiar with, but take a look how they changed, or how the list changed from 2000 to 2010. These are the best companies in the world. These have some of the smartest leaders in the world. How come they don't maintain their leadership? how come many of them over time go out of business? And we take a look at more recently as the top companies evolved to 2020. Again, significant changes. Some of the companies that were on the list before are no longer there. And if you take a look at just 1 year later, dramatic change. Not as much change as you look at it over a decade. But the reason I share this with you is to ensure you recognize that the changes that are taking place are even impacting the biggest companies with the smartest leaders in the world. And if we don't prepare our leaders and we don't prepare ourselves as effective leaders and managers, our companies too can fall by the wayside. And it's not just US companies. So if we take a look at the list of US companies, it's true globally. The same list of global top 10 companies changed dramatically from 2010 to 2020. So this is something that's pervasive, persistent around the globe. We all know that AI, especially as computing people, is one of the hottest emerging technologies. And we take a look at a CEO perspective, and I want to really share with you lots of different perspectives from CEOs as well as CIOs and other business leaders, because I think it's important to recognize that these are the people who are making the decisions, sometimes right, sometimes not right, regarding how we're going to spend our time and how successful we're going to be. So we can see that 60% of the CEOs said they're using AI to improve efficiency and reduce cost, where only 22% are using AI to create new products and services. What we're experiencing is, and you'll see this again shortly, is while IT we know is being used significantly in the back office to enhance products, processes, and productivity, the leaders in today's world are leveraging information technology for revenue generating initiatives to basically enhance their products and services that they're offering to paying customers. It's these companies that are going to succeed in the future. It's these companies that are going to get to the top of the list of the leading companies of the world. But as we look at AI, we know it's hot, but is it the robot's fault? Is the robot automatic vacuum is cleaning what the dog left behind? I love talking about how everybody's looking at having cars drive autonomously. But then I've been in India multiple times. I love to see how they're going to have these cars drive by themselves in some of the traffic jams I've experienced in places like Bangalore and Delhi and Mumbai. It's going to be terrific. I'm not sure I want to drive in one of those cars very quickly. That's for sure, no matter how good the AI might be. Well, as I said, the world's going through profound change. So let's summarize some of the three major segments of changes that are being experienced around the globe. We start with the ecosystem, and we all know what's going on with the pandemic, as well as natural disasters. And we're hearing more and more of more typhoons, more hurricanes, floods, tsunamis, etc., let alone, of course, the impact that we're living today and will be living with for at least several more months with the pandemic, even with the vaccine. The world is basically a global economy. Everybody's dependent on everybody else, right? It's an interdependent world. No country, no company can survive on its own without having partners around the globe. We know what's going on with outsourcing, especially in the information technology domain, and the services business, especially in India, is significant. Well, security, as you'll see, is one of the biggest concerns that both IT and non-IT executives are concerned about. But there's also the concern of the consistent wars that we are experiencing now, and terrorism that we are all concerned about every time we go to an airport. Government regulations and politics. I talk to people, from all over the world, and everybody's concerned about the pandemic, but most everybody says that they're more concerned about their politicians than they are of the virus. And the key focus is on revenue and profits. We used to just focus on leveraging information technology, on cutting costs, reducing budgets. But now the focus of, especially on leading organizations, again, is on increasing revenues and profits. How do we leverage IT to add new products, new services that we offer? So that's the key ecosystem changes that we're experiencing. And then from an information technology perspective, we all know the social, mobile, analytics, and cloud computing technologies that we're all learning about and introducing or leveraging within our companies. Internet of Things, robotics and AI. Bring your own infrastructure. Well, that's what this is, right? I've got everything right here. I've got my apps, I've got my data, I've got my network, I've got my computing. Everything I need is right in my hand. This is probably the best thing and the worst thing that's ever been invented. I hate it. Security, as I mentioned before, and as you, I'm sure, know, is a major concern, especially today. And now it looks like more and more countries are having wars on information technology security, more so than they are in fighting with guns and bombs. 3D printers, hot. Blockchain, it's basically something that's in the early stages. People are still trying to figure out how to use it, not just for financial transactions, but every kind of transaction, healthcare, personal information, sharing, any kind of data will all be done using blockchain technologies. But while we have to work on each of those individual technologies, and working on each of those individual technologies brings a significant amount of challenges unto themselves, they need to all work together in an integrated fashion, but they also have to integrate with our legacy systems. All of those things have to work cohesively together. You can't just look at any one of them without looking at all of them. But you also have to consider all of those technologies and their impact and implications on the entire ecosystem. So the important message I like to give, and too frequently it's one that most or many IT people believe, is you can have the best data in the world. Okay, it doesn't matter. You can have the best infrastructure in the world. It doesn't matter. You could have the best applications that run on the infrastructure that take advantage of the data. It still doesn't matter. What matters is how the business changes what they do to take advantage of the apps that run on the infrastructure that take care of the data. If you don't work on all of those things together, it doesn't matter. Data unto itself, applications unto itself, it just doesn't matter. What matters is how the business leverages it and changes what they do to take advantage of it. And to do that requires what we refer to as alignment, the relationship between IT and business organizations. And we've been studying this for a long time. And I'll give you a taste of some of the research that I have on the alignment relationship. But basically, we know that it demands effective communications. It demands IT understanding the business, as well as the business understanding IT. It demands effective value metrics. While we have to look at our technical measurements and analysis from an infrastructure perspective, the most important value metric is the impact that IT is having directly on the business. That means revenues. Can I attribute the specific contribution that IT is having on the revenues and profits of my company? Governance. Basically, who makes decisions and how do they make them from a strategic, tactical, and operational perspective? These decisions, especially at the higher level, must be made with both IT and business people together. This means that business people need to understand IT, as I also started hearing some discussion when I first joined the call, but they don't need to understand how to write or how to do programming. They need to understand a very specific set of things, which I'll share with you shortly, that are, what our research has found, but they have to understand how to leverage the technology and what the implications could be in the business. But at the same time, IT professionals need to understand the business and need to be able to communicate in terms that the business will appreciate and understand. If you keep talking tech talk, business people aren't going to understand you, nor will they want to spend any time with you. We've got to work together, and governance is a fundamental set of processes to help accomplish that. The relationship, partnership that exists between the IT and business organizations is fundamental to successful alignment and harmony in how we work together. Technology scope is the one technical aspect in alignment, right? That's where we take a look at the applications, infrastructure, data, etc. But basically, much more important than just the technology are also all of these other important relationships. And last but not least is making sure that the human resource and skills that information technology requires is there. And it's more than just technical skills, as you'll see. It's also understanding the business, the industry, the interpersonal skills, so they can work more effectively in understanding the technology, but more importantly, how the technology can enable or drive changes to the business, while at the same time, obviously, business people need to understand how to leverage the technology that they're using. So it's all 6 of these things that are essential to basically focus on to ensure that the business IT relationship is what it needs to be to ensure that we're taking advantage of the emerging technologies, excuse me, and having an effective impact on the entire ecosystem of the company. But while this is going on, right, all these changes are going on at the same time. Any one of these changes would cause a senior business executive, non-IT executive, or IT executive nightmares. But all of these things are going on at the same time and with much more speed, much faster. But we can't just sit back. We have to accept the challenge and flourish in the challenge, because that's the people who can handle that, people who can do that effectively are the people who are going to be successful in their careers. And as they're successful and you're successful in your careers, that will make your company more successful, whether you're whatever industry you're in a commercial industry or a consultant or a service provider, it doesn't matter. So whenever I'm interviewed by somebody from the press, they always want to know, what are the headlines? What are the major changes that we're seeing as trends in information technology? So I'm going to share that with you and then give you a little bit of taste of some of the details, and then we'll wrap it up. So first, as I've been suggesting throughout my time with you so far, is the significant attention that every business leader, every industry is having on IT. The focus in the past has been, cost reductions and control for both IT, but also for the business, but much more so today in generating revenues. Again, very, very different. In the past, business executives used to call upon IT to first say, cut your budget, CIO. I don't care what you do, just cut your IT budget. And that's changed over years to where they were saying IT should work with their business people to help improve productivity and reduce business costs. But now it's very, very different time, which requires a different set of skills. And that is IT and business must work harmoniously together to identify strategies and plans to leverage IT to generate new sources of revenue. Everybody recognizes it, doesn't matter where you are. The key technologies, cloud, security, and data. Regarding budgets, well, we're seeing, and you'll see the numbers shortly, the budgets are continuing to rise as is hiring and salaries are increasing, but not quite the same rate as they did certainly before the pandemic. And what we're seeing is, if we take a look at just between 2014 and 2020, we're seeing the percent of the IT budget attributed to cloud increasing from 10% to 18%, while the percent of the budget spent on employees, whether insourced or outsourced, going down from 40% of the overall budget to 35% of the budget. The role of the CIO is changing dramatically. Right? Everybody that's in an IT job is looking to move up in their careers, and the top job you can have is a chief information officer. So whether you're in IT in a commercial environment and aspire to be a CIO, or you're a consultant or a service provider working for with a CIO, you have to recognize their roles are changing dramatically. And the biggest changes, we've talked about them. Again, it's IT working closer to the business to identify opportunities to leverage IT for revenue generating initiatives. At the same time, we're finding more and more of IT being outsourced, as you'll see shortly when I show you the numbers. So what we're seeing net is in the role of the CIO, the power, the influence that CIOs have in the business is increasing dramatically as business people see the impact that IT must have for the company to succeed. But at the same time, we're finding the budgets for IT shifting dramatically, where more and more things are being outsourced to service providers. And at the same time, from an organizational perspective, more and more IT people are being decentralized into the business units. So while the CIO might have less people reporting directly to them, again, their influence is increasing dramatically. And we know as a result of all of the things that I've just mentioned, that IT business alignment, it continues to be on the top of the list. And it's been that way for well over 30, 40 years now. So we know that things are changing. We know we have to proceed with caution. And then here comes what? The coronavirus. And it shifted everything as we all have experienced it. So we now know that we have to add mobility. And if for any companies that didn't realize the impact that IT must have on the business, certainly realized that with the coronavirus, where they basically had to support all of the employees working from home. And the only way to do that is through IT. So here comes IT shifting their roles and impact and influence they're having on a company to ensure they get mobility up and running quickly so companies can survive within themselves, but also with their customers and clients. Now, everybody's asked me, well, what's going to happen as the coronavirus ends? Hopefully ends sooner than later, and looks like it will, even though we still will go through some pain with some of the new variations of the disease. But I think that we'll still have people working at home. I think that over time, more and more people will going back to the face-to-face office. It's not going to happen immediately. So we'll probably have some companies staying with their employees being mobile. Then other companies are going to start having some hybrid where some time is spent at home and some time is in the office. And I don't know if it'll ever reach what it used to be where we were in the office 100% of the time. But I think in 5 years, maybe 10 at most, we'll see we're going to be close to the way we used to be, with more and more people working the way we used to work face to face. But the impact that IT has in any of those situations will be significant. And it will revert, and we are starting to revert back more and more to, again, the revenue generating initiatives, not just focused on mobility and supporting the company during the pandemic. So biggest headline, IT is reshaping global markets while reshaping itself as IT is becoming the business. Many people basically say that every business is an IT business today. All right, we're in the midst of a digital transformation. If you don't recognize it, you better, because that's the exciting opportunity we all have. And the coronavirus supported that even more with the need for mobility. But the key part that I think is important for you to understand is the state of IT sourcing and talent. And if you talk to IT leaders around the globe, the biggest concern they have is their people do not have the right competencies. They have job openings, but they can't find people with the right skills. And the right skills we'll talk about shortly is not just the key technology skills, although that's important. They're looking for people with a balanced set of technical skills, with business knowledge, leadership knowledge, industry knowledge, and a way to effectively communicate, how to leverage their technical skills to communicate effectively with the business or non-IT parts of the business. If we take a look at what CEOs believe, they're very consistent. The open-ended question and concern is talent. They also are concerned that their people have the appropriate set of skills. In their case, they're looking at IT and concerned about IT skills and making sure their IT people have more than just the technical skills that are required, but also these other skills that I mentioned. But they're also concerned that their managers and others who are non-IT people also understand how to effectively leverage IT in the business. They don't need to know how to implement it, but they do need to know how to deploy it. And if you look at what their considerations or concerns are about from a technical perspective, cybersecurity, no surprise here, right? And other things like cryptocurrency is, much lower on the list of being an important concern from a CEO perspective. And again, these are all global perspectives. So here's the data. If we take a look at the data from 2020, it's the most recent data, you'll see the top 10 overall management concerns. The top two, which is why you see the heavier blue line, security, privacy, and alignment, are standouts, much higher in the rankings than any of the others. Followed by data analytics, which is a standout, a standout above and beyond digital transformation and compliance. And then after that, cloud computing. Towards the bottom 10, it's business cost controls. And everything after that was not a concern of business leaders. But if we take a look at the last decade, you can see some of the trends that are occurring. And you can see that, security was really hot since 2015, not quite as large a concern before that. IT business alignment, like I said, has been pervasive and persistent. If we take a look at my research from 30 years ago. And then some of these things that are hot today weren't even on the list, 4 or 5 years ago. So you can see how some of these trends have changed. All of these charts you have, and you'll be able to get them when the session is over. I sent a PDF file with these charts, so you don't have to worry about copying anything. Again, let's take a look at the CEO perspective of what's going on with these important trends. So 87% of them believe that digital is disrupting their industry. That's a pretty significant number. 44% they believe they really are already. I think that's low, and I'm disappointed in that. But the biggest challenge is the innovation and use of the technology. Cybersecurity followed next. And they believe that true innovation isn't about being cutting edge. It's not the technology. It's how the technology is being leveraged in a company. This is important. Top quartile organizations, these are top performers. 57% of them believe that the senior technical leaders are involved in the strategic planning. You're not going to be an effective IT leader if you're going to work with business people and talk tech talk, as opposed to talking about how the technology can be leveraged in the company. How much more time do I have? Can somebody just let me know?
Sir, 5 to 10 minutes. If
Okay,
that is
I'm going to go warp speed then. Okay. Here's the top technologies. You can see the list. Again, maybe not a surprise to many of you, but cloud, analytics, and security, by far the standouts, and you can look over time like we did before. Analytics has been top of the list, for well over 10 years. The problem is, the biggest problems we're having with implementing data is not the technology. It's getting the right business skills and how IT is working effectively with their business partners. That's the problem. It's not the technical stuff. These you see real fast. Global trends in IT budget, you can see is steadily increasing over the last decade. Good news. If you take a look at how we're spending, the net is, as I mentioned earlier in the highlights, we're spending more on things, hardware, software kind of things. We're spending less on people. And the percent of the budgets for in-house employees versus out-house, pun intended, that's outsourced. Certainly we're spending more on outsourcing than we are in-house. More and more of the skills are being done outside of IT, the organization itself. If you take a look at budget as a percent of revenue, everybody likes to look at that. It's steadily increasing, which is good news. Again, more and more of business is investing in IT to take advantage of these new innovative technologies. If you look at staff turnover rate, well, it looks like it changes dramatically in shorter chunks, but longer range, staff turnover rate is on the rise. And the reason for that are many people are getting frustrated and they feel like you can get higher salaries by leaving their current job and going to a different company. Here's the problem, as we mentioned before, the skills gap, right? We're seeing an increase in the amount of money that companies are willing to spend on their IT people for education and training. That's good news. But these are the skills that we need. It's more than the technical skills. It's the business management skills and the interpersonal skills. As I mentioned before, these aren't just my beliefs or opinions. These are the research. This is what we found with the research. So if you want to be successful, you've got to go beyond just your technical skills. The technical skills that people are looking for, not a surprise, they're consistent with the top technologies. We look at the most important soft skills, other skills. These are the kind of things that you're not always getting in these technical programs. These are the kind of things that you really need to also focus on if you're going to be successful in your careers. If we look at the most important skills from a CIO perspective, there's only two skills that matter. Knowledge of applying information technology to the business and overall leadership skills. That's whether you're talking to a CEO or a CIO or other business executives, other non-IT executives. That's it. If you want to be successful, focus on knowledge of applying IT to the business and your general leadership skills. I'll give you, I put this chart in after hearing the discussion earlier, but these are the skills non-IT executives need to have. Not technical stuff, but understanding roles and responsibilities and how to leverage technologies. And that's why we're here. That's why we have the relationship with the UEM, because we need to recognize the programs and courses that GIM can provide is to leverage not just your technical skills, but your business management, leadership, and industry and interpersonal skills. These are the skills you need to succeed. So managing change is an art. It's not a technology. It's these kind of transformational interpersonal skills that are required to succeed in today's dynamic world. This is a quick summary of my alignment research. We talked about these 6 elements of alignment. We've done research that basically has validated the impact of all of these considerations on alignment and their impact on organization structure, reporting, and more important, firm performance. We know that the higher the strategic alignment maturity, the better companies perform. And that's the bottom line. We've got to work on these relationships between IT and the business if we're going to succeed and if our companies are going to succeed. And we've done research across every industry. We looked at it from outsourcing, we looked at it from COVID. Every one of them shows significant relationship between alignment maturity and how well an organization performs. So the last chart as a summary of things we talked about. We used to focus on IT as a supplier, just optimizing IT for IT's sake when I first joined the business. And then we started taking a look at how IT could help improve the back office. We moved from focusing in on how we did things to what we did. And then we started evolving to growing the business, started to take a look at front office things that customers and clients see. So we started to then take a look at not just what's needed, but to what's possible. What can IT do to really make a difference? So we're now in a point where IT is transforming the business. We're really evolving to become an innovator, not just a service provider. We're working with the business as a strategic partner. And basically, we're not just enabling change, we're driving change. As we improve our working relationship with the business, and the business understands the impact and value that we could have, that's where we want to be. We basically want to focus on increasing revenues, and we want to work with our business partners to co-adapt, to work together, to really have an impact on our customers and our clients. That's the successful changing role of IT people, and that you need to focus on and prepare for as you move ahead in your career and you succeed in your career. So next move is yours. Understand these things, put a plan together, understand what your strengths are, understand the things that you could improve on, and then make sure you prepare for it. I am again really delighted and appreciate the brief time that I had with you. And I really am excited about the relationship that GIM has with the UEM. And I look forward to working with the UEM team to take a look at how we could basically enhance their technical programs that they're currently providing to include the management, leadership, industry, interpersonal skills that are sorely needed to really prepare you for the exciting career that's ahead. Thanks again for the great opportunity, and I look forward to working with everybody. And if there's any kind of questions I can do to help you all, I'd be delighted to do that.
First of all, sir, thank you for the wonderful session. We have learned a lot from this. So there are some questions in the chat box. Mr. Anandraj Pandey is asking, how can business innovate as the pace of change accelerate?
If they don't, not only are they going to fall off the list of the top 10 companies in the country or the world, they're going to go out of business. It's the countries that aren't prepared to innovate that are not going to succeed. And again, the way to do that really is focusing in on the alignment considerations that I talked about. It's having the appropriate relationship between IT and the business, the governance, the communications, the understanding, the relationships, the measurements, etc. And that takes two. I use the analogy of a husband and wife, and I can do that with my gray hairs and after being married for 50 years. It takes two to tango. You know, it's not my wife being aligned with me. It's not me being aligned with my wife. It's how we're aligned together, how we work together to improve our relationship, to improve our lives, to basically ensure we have the kind of things that we desire. That same kind of relationship, you know, is something that's essential between IT and the business. And it's essential to recognize it. For 30, 40 years, we've been really, lots of us have been focusing in on that relationship between business and IT. It's starting to evolve, and largely because of business recognizing the essential requirements and demands for IT to be leveraged to focus on revenues. And the pandemic, I think, with all the negative things about the pandemic, has really been an eye-opener for a lot of business people in recognizing how IT can be leveraged in the business. So again, you know, enjoy the change, but recognize it's there. And if you don't address the change and you recognize you can't do it yourself, you're going to succeed and you're going to have a great career.
Okay, sir, the last question for this session. How do you prepare for technologies that don't exist? Rakshita Rao is asking.
Well, if I knew the answer to that, I wouldn't be here talking to you guys as much as I love my time with you. If I knew what was coming and what they were going to be, I'd be investing in them and I'd be sitting in a nice place on the beach. But candidly, nobody knows truly what the future holds. The only thing that we know for sure is that there's going to be new technologies, and even the people that create the technologies. And you could take a look at these emerging technologies over the 40 plus years that I've been working. the people who created these technologies had no idea what the impact was going to be on these technologies. None at all. And let's forget IT for a second. Think about Edison with the light bulb or electricity. Do you think he had any idea about night football, night baseball? He couldn't dream the kind of things we're doing with technology. Do you think the Wright brothers had any idea that there'd be a 747 that would fly me from New York to India in a couple of hours? If the Wright brothers saw a 747, you wouldn't be able to get them on the plane because they wouldn't believe it could take off. The same thing is true with every technology that we've been working on in IT. Nobody knew the implications of those technologies. Nobody knows the impact in the long term of cloud computing, of AI, of blockchain. We all know it's going to have a big impact. We all know it's exciting, but the true impact really takes place over time in how the business and how people decide to leverage that technology and the impact that technology could have. And then you have just those technologies, then it's the respective vendors. Which of the vendors will succeed for the individual technologies? All of those things are very complex and very important considerations that we have courses that talk about. How do you pick a technology? How do you pick a vendor? And how do you prepare for the future? So it's a great question and something that really needs to be addressed, but it's very complicated and takes time to understand and plan for.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the wonderful session. Now I request our Dean, sir, to present the certificate of appreciation to Dr. Jerry Liftman.
Well, thank you, Dr. Cherry. It was a wonderful, wonderful session. We learned a lot from you. Thank you for sharing your views and observations. It was well taken and well appreciated. I really thank you from the core of my heart, from all the members of the UM family. Thank you. Thank you again.
It's my pleasure. Everybody that I've met from UEM have been terrific. And I really, again, look forward to working with you all in the future. And one day, perhaps we can actually see each other and touch each other.
Sure. We hope to meet you soon. We hope to meet you soon.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, you are.
Okay. There is a small announcement. The feedback form will be circulated just after the third session. So kindly be with us and share your valuable comments with us. So with that note, I'll quickly move on to our third speaker. Our third speaker is Mr. George Theofilovich, is an author, business instructor, and an entrepreneur. He serves as a business instructor at Toronto Business College. He has authored book, What Serbs Must Do to Survive, and co-founder of a publishing company, Ilion Publishing. I welcome you, sir, and request you to take over the session. Mr. Georgie, am I audible? Dr. Liftman, I request you to kindly just stop sharing the screen, sir. So you're not audible, sir. Just unmute, sir. Unmute yourself, sir.
I'm trying to get the full screen so I can do that. Hold on. You should be okay now. Doc, are you okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The Georgie, Mr. Georgie, am I audible?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir. Welcome, sir. Welcome.
Thanks. One little issue we have is I cannot start my camera.
Okay. Can you, sir, present the screen, sir? Can you just showcase this presentation?
Oh, okay, I see. So I think I needed the permission from the host.
Just a minute. Just a minute.
I'm starting a video, but
Georgie,
it says that I have issues with settings, and it seems
just
like
try it once, sir. Actually, from our side, we have given you the permission to share, sir. Just try it once again. Maybe there will be some technical glitch, I guess.
enable. No, it just won't start. I used it yesterday. There was no problems. Right now, I cannot start it. I'm getting the message that I need another video camera in settings, and there is only one. So no, it won't start.
What's showing, sir? Can you just let me know?
Yeah, when I press start video, I get the message that says fail to start the video camera. Please select another video camera in settings.
Okay, can you just try to share the presentation?
Let's see. You see it?
Just a minute. Just a minute. Yes, yes. Good to go, sir.
Okay, so
Yes, we can see your presentation.
Okay, I can get going with this.
Yes.
Okay, so just a little announcement. This is sort of about management and about strategy. As we speak, I'm in my class. I'm teaching at Toronto Business College. And currently there is class Global Business Environment going on. And my students are probably watching this on YouTube, and some of them joined the Zoom meeting. So I want to thank them for understanding to let me present this during their class, and luckily I'll have better opportunity in the future to take them to the real conferences and not only to the virtual ones. Thanks for inviting me. My name is George Teofilovic. I am author, business instructor, entrepreneur. Today, I will move to the topic about blockchain technology. The central point of my presentation is actually public service term limits first, that would require blockchain technology really to be proliferated to the point that we would all benefit from it. When we talk about blockchain technology, what we consider it is a form of a decentralized database, and term blockchain refers to the network of distributed ledger technologies. So if we are good accounting students, or even those that didn't do well in accounting, we will remember that ledger is a book or other collection of financial accounts of a particular type. So ledgers are foundation of accounting, and they claim it's concept old as writing and money. When they say that blockchain is a revolutionary technology, I would probably disagree with it, because cell phone may be revolutionary technology, but there were phones before. So it was more of innovation than invention. And I would find blockchain to be more of innovation of something that already existed than complete invention that caught us all by surprise. To get an overview of blockchain, so they claim it's a system of incorruptible digital ledgers of transactions that can be programmed to record and track anything of any sort of value, medical records, land titles, voting. When you probably think about anything of the value, medical records, land titles, think about insurance companies and financial institutions, banks. They're doing something like that already. They have our information from day one when we're starting working with them. The reason why it's different from blockchain is because they don't share and they don't distribute it with others. So uniqueness about the blockchain is that it's shared and distributed information. And it's a good way to record transactions, starting from transaction number one. Now, when we say transaction number one, that's something that could be very useful and extremely dangerous at the same time. We would agree that fire was an excellent thing for the mankind, but one proverb says that fire is a good servant, but evil master. And I would feel that blockchain technology would serve the same purpose. If mankind uses it wisely, it could be beneficial to many. If it is in the hands of the few, I'm afraid that it would be used to add a layer of oppression to the rest of the world. The blockchain elements, data, hash, and hash of previous block. So data depends on the blockchain that is being used for. We are all familiar with Bitcoins and cryptocurrencies, but blockchains go way beyond that. So that particular data would contain information about transaction, sender, receiver, number of coins, and so on. Next step in the blockchain concept is a hash. It's something like a fingerprint or signature, and it identifies a block and all its content, and it's always unique. Specialty about the blockchain is hash of the previous block. So P is precisely what makes a blockchain. Each block carries the information of the previous block, and chain becomes very secure. So we have data, we have hash of a previous block. Going back to the accounting we were talking about, I see it this way. I broke it down the way I find it reasonable so that people that are not familiar with blockchain technology could understand. Data that we're talking about would be a transaction. Hash in blockchain technology would be similar to income statement in accounting, where transactions, revenues, and expenses are put together in income statement. And then we have hash of previous block. I would say that could be a balance sheet. Balance sheet does include information found in income statement through statement of owner's equity to balance sheet, and it contains all of the transactions. So why would we say that blockchain is so secure? There are 3 points. First, that interfering with the block on a blockchain is, they claim, almost impossible to do. One way to do is hashing. Tampering with the block within a blockchain causes the hash of the block to change. And that change makes the following block originally pointed to the first block's hash invalid. The same concept as in accounting. If you make a mistake, if you make some change, if you record something that you shouldn't be recording, you try to put trial balance together and it seems okay. And you put remaining transactions together, and you get a problem. And it is very likely, if you do one mistake, that your financial statements would be incorrect. The same thing happens with blockchain technology. If something doesn't match, it becomes obvious. The difference from accounting is, in accounting, 1, 2, or 3 people would realize that there is a problem. With blockchain technology, in case of Bitcoin, those will be millions of people around the world that will get information that there is something wrong. So changing one little piece becomes obvious to many. That's what makes blockchain unique and secure. So in fact, changing a single block makes all the following blocks invalid, and it becomes visible. So setup gives the blockchain that level of security that proponents of blockchain are talking about. Second, on the top of those hashes, blockchain have security steps like proof of work and peer-to-peer distribution. So proof of work is a mechanism that slows down the creation of the block. You cannot do it quickly. In Bitcoin's case, it takes about 10 minutes to calculate required proof of work and to add a new block. And this makes tampering with the block fairly difficult. I wouldn't say impossible, but definitely difficult. There are some claims that blockchain like Bitcoin contains hundreds of thousands of blocks. So if you want to manipulate them, it would take, they claim, about 10 years. Is it worth it in the end? Probably not. Third one, what I like about blockchain is the fact that it's being distributed. Financial statements, accounting kept in the company, and they're shared with independent auditors or with the government. But in case of blockchain, all of the information is shared with everybody that are on the same network. So in public blockchains like Bitcoin, everybody is allowed to join. Each member of the network becomes a node, or in common language, a validator. So when someone joins the network, they get the full copy of the blockchain. Imagine somebody joining the company and they get a copy of all of the financial statements. Of course, they will not. In this way, the validator or node can verify that everything is still in order. So the beauty of blockchain is that it's distributed, that so many people are members of the network and they have all access to the same information. So block creation in the network, how does it work? First, the new block is sent to everyone in the network. Can you imagine that financial statements are sent to everybody in the company or everybody in the society? That's what makes blockchain different than accounting. So second step is that each validator would verify the block and make sure it hasn't been tampered. And the third one, if everything checks out, each node adds this new block to their own blockchain. So all the nodes in the process create consensus. They agree about which blocks are valid and which one aren't. And the other nodes in network reject blocks that are tampered. So to successfully mess with block of blockchain, you need to tamper with all the blocks on the chain, redo the proof of work for each block, and take control of the peer-to-peer network, which appears to be extremely difficult task. How does blockchain create trust in data? Few things happen. Cryptographic puzzle must be solved to create the new block. Most of us commoners don't understand how that functions. Those on a higher level understanding math would be able to explain. Computer solves the puzzle, shares the solution with all other computers in the network, and everybody involved in the network verify the proof of work. When it comes to consensus, the claim is that 51% of the network testifies that the proof of work was correct, and then the new block is added to the chain. So if somebody would want to tamper with Bitcoin, they would need to have 51% of the network in their hand. Even the richest people in the world, if they would want to take control over it, they would need to buy 51% of the Bitcoins. And in order to do that, they would be buying and the price would increase due to the increase in demand. They would probably overpay to take over the network. and what they would be able to control, not necessarily blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies, but they would be able to control Bitcoin, and all of the individuals that would in the process earn money from selling Bitcoin would just move to different cryptocurrencies and invest their money. So taking over certain cryptocurrency or using blockchain to your own selfish advantage would be extremely difficult, if not impossible. Some of the blockchain applications, you're all familiar with cryptocurrencies. I personally don't have much trust in cryptocurrencies because I don't believe that money issuance and creation is the key to our problems. It's definitely something that could be looked into, but not necessarily the founding rock of our problems. In the developed world, many industries could be more efficient and cheaper. Banking and insurance for sure. Banking, if you want to send money using particular banking system, it would take some time, it would cost some money, it would take a few days for transfer to complete. And as you probably know, if you do any of the cryptocurrencies transfer, it would take a few minutes. Supply chain management, optimizing food supply in terms of safety. So if there is a problem with food safety, they would be able to identify which items are affected, and they will be able to isolate them from the supply network. Smart contracts, speed and cost, this would be amazing for sure. It would eliminate lawyers. It would eliminate many companies because it won't be necessary for them to do those contracts. Contracts on blockchain are visible and are available. As you know, contract is a voluntary agreement between two or more parties where they agree to exchange something of a value. And there are bits of computer code that sit on the blockchain network that verify the enforcement of performance and so on. Reduces disagreement for sure. I live in Toronto, and if you have issue with somebody and you take the matter to the small claim court, it's possible you may end up spending 1 year waiting for a decision. And when you get decision, all you get is a right to collect the money. So it's, in my opinion, extremely long process, extremely expensive process, and fairly useless process in the end. If the person on the other side is very smart, the person could be hiding maybe the money that they owe you, and nothing could be done about that. Any centralized system can be replaced with a decentralized. We all know about Amazon or eBay or Uber, web hosting and so on. There's some claims that whatever Uber is doing, thanks to the blockchain technology, in the near future, the system could be developed based on decentralized autonomous organizations, just like Uber uses the application. Drivers could use the same application that is on blockchain, and they could be connected with riders. And instead of leaving 15, 20, 25% to the Uber, it could cost maybe 1%, and it would be definitely more beneficial to the individual. So blockchain technology, if properly implemented and decentralized, would probably bring benefits to the individuals like us. Blockchain addresses issues around electronic election voting, where security is extremely important. We've seen situation in United States. Not that we are taking side who is right, who is wrong, because we don't have access to the information, but it's possible that blockchain would resolve those issues in the future. Issues with elections and voting system are common for many countries around the world, but right now we see that it's not property of only developing countries, but it could happen in developed countries as well. What's important in blockchain is management of your own data. What we have right now is that Facebook and Google are collecting our information. They're storing it and selling it to the highest bidder. And it would be nice if at some point of time we may decide what is the data of our own that we want to sell and get the proceeds from it. In the developing world, there's about 3 billion people that are currently unbanked and undocumented. This is not the problem for developing, it's also for developed world. You probably know that if in Canada or United States you lose your passport or you lose your wallet and money, it's very likely that people return it to you. But sometimes they would say about documents that are lost, keep the money but return the documents, because it's extremely difficult to get documents again. When I say difficult, it takes time, it takes money, and of course you need to sit down and to do the same applications, and most of the people don't enjoy doing that at all. In developing countries, lots of people don't have access to the ID. They cannot go to school. Kids cannot go to school because they don't have ID. They don't have ID because they don't have birth certificate. In order to get birth certificate, it may take 6 months or 1 year, and so on. So IDs, passport, driver's licenses, proof of educational background, everything could be put on a blockchain, and everything could be documented at some point of time, that it could make it free, almost free, and easy for individuals in developing countries to get access to basic rights, to get documents and to be accepted members of the society. Without ID, there is really not much you can do today. In many developing nations, where governments and systems do work well, do corruption, poverty, civil wars, and lack of infrastructure, potential range of benefits in decentralized blockchain technologies would be definitely important in terms of building a fairly cheap infrastructure. There are some claims that around $10 trillion of wealth is locked up in those countries, and just because of the lack of documentation, that it cannot be used. I could give example from Serbia, where I'm coming from. I think maybe 20 years ago, I started with my family process of getting documents for the property that my grandfather owned, and I think still to date we didn't get solution. If we got those papers to prove that we are owners, we would be able to do something with that land, but for 20 years we're sitting and waiting. And you can imagine if maybe 500,000 or 1 million people from Serbia, that maybe 5 or 10% of the population, would also get their properties in their hands and they would be able to do something, it would definitely affect the economy positively. This presentation started with a tool that is a blockchain. And now I'm going to move to something that is more important. Blockchain and mainstream. Is it going to become mainstream? Maybe yes, maybe no, but there is issue with power. There's so many powerful ones in our world: politicians, financial institutions, real estate agents, judges, lawyers. What is the potential for blockchain to become mainstream? Very likely feasible and beneficial to mankind. I'm concerned that if the whole system of those overprivileged stays in place, it's very improbable that we would benefit from blockchain. What do we need to have for blockchain to really be the tool that benefits everybody, and how to make it mainstream tool for fairness, and how to make it to go from alternative to mainstream? What matters the most to us today? What bothers us is not necessarily existence and access to blockchain or not, but most of us have issues with political systems. Situation in Canada where less than 50% of the people vote. That means they don't necessarily believe in political system. Interior Ministry. What matters is when we're dealing with the police, when we get pulled over on the street by a policeman. Judicial system. Do we have fair chance of winning in court if we are right? Do we get impartial decisions or not? Many countries around the world, it really doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. If you're able to get a proper representative that has proper connections, you win the case. If not, it doesn't really matter if you're right or wrong again. Government hiring process, when you're applying for a job to work with the government, that really matters to us. But so many times we get job opening, we file application, and we don't get a job, and we never know what happened in the process. Who got the job, if there was a job at all or not. Healthcare system is important. In many countries, there are those that are overprivileged, not because of the care they need, but because of the connections they have. So these are the things that matter to us. Blockchain could assist in the process, but if we don't solve issues like these 5, we won't be able to benefit from blockchain either. Because if politicians manage to use blockchain against us, we will have even less power than we have today. So back to the political system, the same old system is based on monopoly and political power in blockchain. Would it be liberation or added oppression? What if the same political system stay and the same political monopoly stay in place and blockchain becomes mainstream? 100 years ago, we were talking about, or actually our ancestors were talking about the revolutions in technology and industry, and they really hoped that at some point of time that would benefit the mankind, that we would have better lives. And these days, we don't feel like that we have better lives, that we work less. We end up actually working more, and many believe that we don't have better life than our ancestors had. Database of eligible voters would definitely help out, and issues with voting and cheating on elections could be resolved. And what would it take to break political power and those monopolies? Not necessarily blockchain that they hail as a solution. We're going to get to that as well. Let's go back to Interior Ministry, to the police. In Canada, they say they're here to serve and protect the public. For most of the times, yes. For some times, they don't. And they claim that the chain is as strong as its weakest link. So those that don't really get to be served and protected are the ones that matter. Blockchain technology, it could help, but it could have adverse effect if police does control who gets to pay a ticket, who doesn't get to pay a ticket. What happens when we report powerful person? Let's say a police pulls me over because I'm on my phone. I would get a ticket and probably there is no way out. What happens if I take a picture as a passenger of a policeman driving a car and using a cell phone? When I report it to the police, would the person get a ticket? Of course not, they'll throw it away. So that's the form of unfairness that blockchain could serve. If there is a system where I take a picture of a cop and put in information and make it public, and it goes on a blockchain, not necessarily to his supervisor to determine what to do, but it goes to 100,000 people that could actually have that information. So reporting wrongdoing of a police officer in pretty much every country is mission impossible. Sometimes we see it on YouTube or on social media that something is done, but most of the times that goes to those that have the monopoly on power, and reporting police officer for wrongdoing doesn't go anywhere. Police officer reports you for wrongdoing, yeah, you'll be definitely in trouble. Speeding tickets, many countries around the world, you get pulled over, you need to pay for a ticket or bribe the policeman or go to the court and lose and pay. If policeman is speeding his private car and he gets a ticket, actually he won't get a ticket at all. The fact that he is policeman, the other policeman will let him go. Blockchain could be the part of this answer. If used properly, it could level the field for all of us. We have judicial. In judicial system, we will have decentralized decision-making, from reporting to decision-making, blockchain at its finest. If I report somebody, or if I sue somebody today, let's say in Pakistan or India or in Serbia, if I'm suing the powerful person, that lawsuit will be thrown away. It will end up in a drawer. It will disappear. It will be gone. With blockchain, if I'm able to sue somebody and put it on blockchain, then that information is shared, then everybody would be able to see that that case exists. And if somebody in the court decides to throw it away, as we mentioned, it will show up on blockchain that it's missing. You're all familiar with issues of lost and overdue reports and lawsuits. There is a system that I developed in my book where decentralized system of prosecution and decentralized system of decision-making could be done. The same as ruling in court, where power is not in the hands of a one person, but it is in the hands of, how to say, a shared network that could make a decision without knowing how other members in the network will decide. Government hiring process, as you're probably familiar, there is a job. And lots of times, even in Canada, I felt that those jobs were gone way before I applied. Sometimes I went for interviews and I never heard back from the individuals that interviewed me. I would assume that that job was open for somebody who got it before the job opening was created. And many people were fooled in the process to write resumes, to write cover letters, to go for interview if they're selected, and just to learn, just to realize that they never got the job. They don't know who got the job. Do we find the process transparent and fair? Probably not. Who decided who gets hired? Those individuals that do have power decide. Do we know the qualifications of the hired candidate? Never. Blockchain could be part of solution if there is really a job. There is a hiring process. We could see the decisions of the individuals. We see the ranking or rating. We see the person that got the job, and we want to see the reasoning, the rationale behind hiring that person. Without blockchain, where it's all centralized, it's all in the hands of the few, there is no way that we can control the process. And very likely in the end, we end up being losers in the process. Healthcare system, it should be first come, first serve basis. You probably experienced it like I did, that you're waiting.
Sir, I think there is some issue with the audio, sir. Am I audible to you, sir?
I hear you well.
Yes, sir. Good to go. Yes, sir.
Okay. So a blockchain would eliminate corruption from reception. If you have an option to schedule appointment with your doctor, and if it's on blockchain and it's distributed, then on the other side, receptionists have to admit you. They cannot put anybody ahead of you. Doctor cannot look at anybody ahead of you unless it's urgent, and usually it's not urgent. So decentralized and distributed information on healthcare professionals, their competencies and quality of service could be delivered through blockchain. You probably experience so many times that you hear of medical practitioners that are not as good, and they keep doing the same wrong thing, and really nothing prevents them from keep doing that. That's something that us as regular human beings would like to change. Now we're going back to the decentralized political system. The presentation would maybe start with decentralized political system, move through decentralized decision-making to decentralized database, but I started it the other way around. So in order to decentralize this political system, the key would be to decentralize the government. And I do believe the solution to that success would be to limit public service for most of professions. I would say politicians, government employees, judges, prosecutors, police officers, all of them could serve, let's say 8 years in a lifetime, and then they could move on. A reason why I'm advocating this is if blockchain technology becomes mainstream under current system that we have in every country, I'm afraid that it would become a tool of oppression. They will have all of the information about us. When I say them, I say those that have power. I do live in Toronto. I see cameras being installed every single day, and they say it's for our added safety. I don't feel safer. And it especially concerns me that the same people are in the police, the same people are in the politics, the same people control the flow of the money, and they're adding cameras and everything else for my own safety. I would actually feel pretty safe if I would know that all of them would serve only a limited term, and as I say, 8 years, and after that they're gone. Maybe it would be fair for me to take their spot, and then that I have access to their information and I install more cameras for their safety and so on, because I don't feel like it's right for them to care for me so much while I don't have an opportunity to care for them. And when it says public service, that's the idea that we should be all serving the public. In every constitution, probably around the world, we are equal citizens, we have equal rights and obligations, but it seems that some work for 20, 30, 40 years for the government, and some don't get opportunity to serve the public. There will be a domino effect from political power, through economic power, over decision-making power, and back to where we started, the decentralized database. So what will happen with political power? With term limits of 8 years, I say it 8 years because 2 terms, most of the countries are 4 years apiece, they would end the power that politicians derive from decision-making. It would effectively end political corruption because corruption takes years to develop. We may be susceptible to being corrupted, but if we have certain limitations to how we are going to do our job, if we're going to get corrupted, I do believe that the term limits would help. Even if you get a decent job, the only opportunity to become corrupted is if there is a system in place and there is way for somebody to protect you if you do something wrong. If that individual may be replaced in a short period of time and you don't have backup, you will think twice if you're going to do something wrong or not. And especially with blockchain technology, if you do something wrong, it would be visible to hundreds of thousands of individuals, those so-called validators. So ending corruption at the political level, in my opinion, would trickle down through the society. It would be a life without politicians that we keep seeing for decades. I personally get tired of seeing politicians with the same stories over and over again, and they always solve our problems, and I don't even ask them to do so. So politicians with broken connections would be useless. Today, prime minister or president of one country, when they step down, they do get good jobs just because of the connections they have. And connections will be there because the system that they were part of is not changing. It's like a swamp. Now, if we turn the political system and public service into a stream where things are moving and things are changing, then somebody steps down as a president, within 1 or 2 years, all of the individuals they work with would be gone from the politics. And I guarantee you nobody from those private companies or public companies will hire them because they wouldn't be able to use their connections because they don't have connections anymore. Once political power is eliminated, economic power will diminish as well. The wealthy and those that have today will keep in touch with politicians, with the system, and they will keep growing their wealth. Some people have tens of billions of dollars. I don't necessarily believe they earned it in a fair market competition. So I'm advocating leveling the playing field, starting from the politics down to economics. So economic power is based on connections with politicians. Once politicians are systematically replaced, it gets harder to control the decision-making and flow of political and economic decisions. Decentralized decision-making power. So what happens without political and economic monopoly? There is more transparency and fairness that could be within the reach to a regular person. You should be able to get a fair judgment in the court. A judge that has 30 years of experience is way too powerful and not necessary to make those decisions for us. We are smart enough, we see what is right, what is wrong, and even individuals 50 decentralized, unrelated individuals could make a right decision for almost any case that ends up in the court. And they could do it at the fraction of the cost and fraction of the time. It could be done, in my opinion, within few hours. And at times for judges, we wait for years to bring a decision. They claim the system is slow. We know what bottleneck is in every single part of the government and society. There is a bottleneck, and we just keep waiting for them to make a decision. Being treated with respect by the police officer on the street would be expected. It would happen if police officers know that he has expiration date on his contract, that he won't or she won't be there forever. If a cop pulls me over and gives me a speeding ticket and I pay for the ticket, that's fair. All I would ask for is an opportunity that I become a cop in 4, 5, 6 years, and I get to pull over the same person that gave me the ticket for speeding, and that person pays the ticket just like I did. That would be the fairness in society. Getting fair opportunity to get a job with the government would be possible. Even in Canada, so many times I hear the same thing, that people tell me, doesn't seem like what you know, it seems like it's whom you know. Yes, I experience it, I realize it, that's the way it is, and I would like that to change. I don't mind doing what I'm doing. I don't want to become a prime minister or politician or work for a government at all, but I think it will be fair to give everybody an opportunity. To conclude, let's go back to the blockchain. I do believe it's an outstanding idea that is based on accounting principles, but compared to accounting principles, I find it to be refined, improved, and fairly distributed. I do believe it could be crucial to be used once term limits to public service are put in place. When I say term limits to public service, you don't replace surgeons, you don't replace dentists, engineers in power plants, you don't replace them, because in so many places, experience matters. Pilots, the national airline company, you cannot replace them because they're, I wouldn't say irreplaceable, but you would want to have somebody with more experience to do so. But when it comes to police, when it comes to judges, when it comes to people that work in public offices, when it comes to politicians, I do believe that every politician should be replaced, and maybe even giving them 1 or 2 years to be in politics will be more than enough, because I don't necessarily see that they're making any difference, positive difference for all of us. I do believe that if blockchain technology becomes mainstream with the existing political and economic system, there is a fear that it would be, that we would be all served an unpleasant surprise, that something that is promising would be something that ends up in added oppression to the, I would say, a mankind. That will be my presentation. I'm trying to start the video again, but it doesn't work. I guess I will stay with audio only. If there are any questions, I'm willing to answer them in case I'm capable of answering them. Mr. Arora? I see the chat box is open. If anybody has questions, I don't seem to hear anybody. Dr. Sharma, do you want to take over? It seems like that moderator is not available.
Am I audible, sir? Actually, there is some internet issue, I guess. Yes. Am I audible? Right? Am I audible and visible?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you so much for the great session. So there are queries. There are some questions in the chat box. Should I raise that?
Yes, please.
Can anyone start a blockchain? Are there different type of blockchains? Mr. Deepak Sharma is asking.
There is one blockchain. Yes, you can start blockchain. You can start any project based on the blockchain technology. Blockchain is a concept, it's a foundation. So you can use it. You can start cryptocurrency, as you probably know. Blockchain gives us opportunity to start unimaginable things. And yes, blockchain as technology cannot be started because it already exists. It's a concept. If somebody would ask you, could we start our own accounting system? Well, accounting system that you would start wouldn't be way different than something that already exists. So accounting systems that are in place are, in my opinion, so good. That's why they still exist. Blockchain is advance to accounting systems. We could all use blockchain technology. Could we start our own fire? Yes, we can start our own fire and use it for our purposes, but fire already exists. So instead of starting blockchain, I think we should use it to our benefit.
Okay, great. I think Mr. Deepak has got the answer. So Mr. Nikhil Tiwari is asking, is it possible in blockchain to remove one or more block from the networks?
Yes, you can remove it, but it would be obvious to many involved that it is being removed. You can remove, in case of a smart contract, you can remove your consent from the network, but you cannot remove your information that is already in a blockchain. That's one of the things with blockchain, is that everything is recorded. When it's recorded, it's kind of accepted by the validators and distributed to everybody. So at some point of time, your information will stay there. That's my concern. When you think about Facebook, you turn off your Facebook account, but they say your information still stays there, and it's recorded from day one. So sort of blockchain, it's similar to blockchain. It's not distributed to others, but it's kept in the hands of the few in case of Facebook. In case of a blockchain, it works the same way, but many get access to that information in their hands. Facebook is surrogate of blockchain in the hands of the few. Blockchain, a real one, is information of Facebook distributed to hundreds of thousands of people. So everybody have the same information in their hands.
Okay. Due to time constraint, I can just pick one more question. So, Mr. Suraj Tanwar is asking, can blockchain be used outside the cryptocurrency field?
In my opinion, I'm doing third edition of my book next year. I will use blockchain to apply to those ministries that I developed. And cryptocurrencies are just tip of the iceberg when it comes to blockchain. But cryptocurrencies follow the concept, blockchain concept, to the fraction of blockchain's possibilities. So that's why when we talk about Bitcoin, when we talk about cryptocurrencies, we believe that's blockchain. No, blockchain is the foundation that cryptocurrencies, the concept of cryptocurrencies are built on. So there are so many applications that could be done. I would say we are not even aware of number of blockchain applications that we will have in this world. Cryptocurrencies, I would personally find them to be agents of a change. Cryptocurrencies brought the idea of blockchain to most of the people, but definitely that's not the beginning and the end of the blockchain technology. I would say just beginning.
Okay, great. I think Mr. Tanwar has got the answer. So thanks a lot. One more time, sir. Thanks a lot for the great session. Now I request our registrar sir to present the certificate of appreciation to Mr. Theofilovich.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bhaskar. Thank you, Professor George. It was a wonderful session on blockchain and its implication on the society and the concerns related to that. This is one of, you can say, one of the best session I have attended, and thank you very much for that. Dr. Bhaskar, can you share the certificate, please?
Sure, sir. It's on the screen.
Professor George is a small token of appreciation from the entire IEM UEM group. We really appreciate your efforts, and the session was really wonderful, informative. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thanks. One more thing before we leave is, since you gave me a token of appreciation, I will inform Dr. Sharma. I will provide her a link to my ebook, and with my permission to share it with whomever participants in the conclave, all of those that registered. So for next few days, I think up until Sunday, they could go to their favorite ebook store and download my book for free. It's ebook. They could put it on a phone or a laptop, and they have nothing else to do. They could actually read it. So thank you for the invitation again.
Thank you, sir, for this wonderful initiative from your side. Definitely students and faculty members will take the most of the benefit out of it. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. De George. Now, I just conclude the session. It has been a wonderful evening as we have witnessed galaxy of thoughts from around the world. Now, let me say that the conclave would have been incomplete without addressing the contribution and support of Dr. Preeti Sharma ma'am, without whom this conclave would have not been in the picture. On behalf of the whole team of IMC, I thank you, ma'am, and request you to give vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, Bhaskar, for your such kind words. Although it is a very great team efforts, and I congratulate all of you for organizing the first management conclave. And before that, I would like to say my sincere thanks to the entire management, Chancellor Sir, Vice Chancellor Sir, Pro Vice Chancellor Sir, Dean Sir, Registrar Sir, all the HODs, all the faculty members who have helped us out in the entire journey. The journey was very nice, and it was just an initiation sitting, and a thought came to our mind that why not to bring all the world together and have a discussion regarding all the upcoming issues which the management students should know. So we were having a galaxy of eminent speakers, whereby all my students, along with the students of De Georgie from Canada, and Gary's student from England, from Australia, some students were there. So all over the world, these students have benefited from this conclave. So I'm really very thankful to all these students, all the participants who have participated very actively for the entire 2 days. And a special thank to the entire committee. And here I would like to request our respected VC sir to just give the token of thanks and appreciation letter to all the students, all the faculties who are actively involved from past few days. So, sir, may I request you to please hand over the certificate of appreciation to the entire committee?
Yes, definitely. Yes, definitely.
Thank you very much, sir.
I believe I'm visible and audible. I'm not sure, but
yes, sir.
Anyway, okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Sir,
Yes.
You are very much visible and audible. So may I request Nikhil to present the first certificate to our co-convener Bhaskar Arora, the master of ceremony, who has really managed everything so beautifully that it was flawless. So congratulations, Bhaskar. And sir, may I request you to say a few words for Bhaskar?
Yes, I have attended the session yesterday, and also have attended session today. And the way Professor Bhaskar presented the whole thing was really praiseworthy. Thank you, Dr. Bhaskar. I'm sure you had a big role to play in organizing this entire conclave, and I'm thankful to you. and thankful to the entire School of Management. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Next co-convener is Shweta Parekh, who has really managed all these students of all the years very beautifully and solved all the queries. Students were really very curious regarding this management conclave because it was the first international conclave from our side, and the students were very much enthusiastic in meeting the foreign delegates. So all the queries were very beautifully handled by Shweta Parekh. So may I please request Nikhil to put forward the certificate of Shweta. Shweta, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So please.
So the same thing for Shweta, Professor Shweta Parekh. Professor Shweta has been doing really good in organizing many events, and she is always seen as a student coordinator. She interacts with the students. She is very close to the students. So again, I'm thankful to Professor Shweta Parekh.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. And
Thank you so much. Thank you.
thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shweta. The students coordinator, this time we were having MBA and BBA students together who helped in organizing this event. First, I would like to call upon Nikhil, who has managed all the technical issues, all the glitches we were having so beautifully, and so like they have applied all the management skills which we have taught them in the past 1.5 years. So Nikhil, can you please put forward your appreciation letter certificate?
Oh,
Can you
great.
please put on your
Yes.
camera? Nikhil, are you there?
So Nikhil is managing everything from the back end. I can see that he's every time the screen sharing was needed, he was doing it, switching the screen, switching the maybe the microphone and all this. He has handled it so nicely. Thank you, Nikhil. Thank you so much. You have really done a great job. You have really done a great job, and I'm sure you had a big role to play in organizing this conclave. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikhil. Thank you very much for all the technical support which we received from your end. Next is Rajat. Rajat, can you please put forward your camera, your certificate, please?
Good evening, ma'am.
Great. So yes, Rajat, thank you so much for being a part of this. I'm sure that you all had a big role to play, because single-handedly no event can be conducted. So I'm very sure that all of you did a wonderful teamwork in organizing this. Thank you so much, Rajat. Thank you. Very good.
Welcome, sir.
Next is Vishaka Soni, a BBA student, BBA third year student, who managed all the queries from her classmates, since BBA was undergraduate program, and they were also very excited since it was their first visual program which they were attending and which they were managing. So the entire class of BBA and MBA were very much involved into the entire process of organizing the event. So I was really very happy with the performance which they have played.
Yes, so wonderfully done, Vishaka. I'm thankful to you for organizing this, and maybe you have represented, you and your mates have teammates have well represented the BBA in the organization of this conclave. Thank you so much, and I'm sure that you have got a long way to go forward. I'm sure. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishaka. Last but not the least is Harsh Mittal, a BBA second year student, very active student, who has circulated this entire management conclave, who has promoted this management conclave very actively. He was first one to ask questions regarding the management conclave, who is coming, how we are going to manage. So everything practically done by Harsh Mittal and very nicely handled. The classmates and the other audiences, other students of the other universities and colleges. So may I request Nikhil to please present his certificate of appreciation?
Wonderful, Harsh. Really good. I have been observing you also in the virtual platform. You are very active. So thank you.
Thank
for
you, sir.
organizing this. Thank you so much for organizing this. I'm sure that all of you have got a very, very long way to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks for all your support for the School of Management time and again. And we are really very much blessed to have such a management who really believes in us that yes, we can do anything and everything. And with this note, I would like to announce that yes, next year, same date, same time, we are going to meet again. And with best wishes to everyone present here. Thank you.
Thank you
Over
so
to you,
much.
Bas.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. It's just a reminder that feedback form has been posted in the YouTube chat box. Kindly fill. Thank you everyone for joining the session today. Certificates will be soon be provided to all the participants. Keep learning. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you. We are closing.